Awesome. Okay. So the Stonecrest Citizens Coalition was founded in 2018 and has a history of grassroots organizing and advocacy, and is guided by Stonecrest residents committed to community engagement, dialogue, deliberation, transparency, and efficacy. Our goal is to do transformative, impactful work informed by the community and by sound data gathering and analysis that supports what the community wants and needs, not just for the city's sake, but for the benefit of everyone who lives, works, and visits here. Our mission is to improve the quality of life and prosperity for Stonecrest residents, business owners, and other stakeholders through education, advocacy, and action. We envision one Stonecrest, united under the concept of Ujamaa, which is collective work and responsibility, where the city government cooperates with its citizens to establish and maintain a government that is ethical, transparent, and accountable, and where the citizens of Stonecrest are engaged collectively to improve our quality of life as expressed in the city's pillars of live, work, play, shop, educate, and worship. We collectively as an organization value several things, among those being love. We value kindness, faith, family, human dignity, collaboration, advocacy and activism, data-driven practices, accountability, community, honesty and ethics, and transparency. If you haven't already, we hope that you will consider following us on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. You can find us on any of those platforms at Stonecrest Citizens Coalition. We hope that you will also bookmark our website, that's stonecrestcitizens.org. You can find us on the web. If you visit our website, you'll notice that you can access our member application there. You can purchase a t-shirt there. You can donate to the Stonecrest Citizens Coalition on our website as well. This is, like I mentioned earlier, our monthly meeting. Our monthly meetings, community engagement meetings, are held on the second Tuesday of each month at 7 p.m. So we hope also that you'll be looking for notifications to join us in March, on March 8th at 7 p.m. At that time, our vote committee, our voter outreach, turnout, and engagement committee will be hosting us for a community conversation about the importance of voting. And we all know that we have a special election coming up soon. So I hope you will plan to tune in at that time. So I did that quickly. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to put them in the chat. My intention was to get out of the way to make sure that we have plenty of time to hear from our city manager, and also to have her have time to answer any questions that you all may have for her on this evening. So with that said, I will happily and gladfully turn over this meeting to Ms. Alex Bird.
Thank you so much, Malika. I have the honor and distinct pleasure tonight of introducing our guest. We have a true gem, so I hope you are prepared with your questions. Miss Janice Allen Jackson is the city manager for Stonecrest and the chief operating officer for city government. She is responsible for daily operations and overseeing all city departments. Ms. Jackson has served as city manager of Albany, Georgia, and administrator of the consolidated Augusta, Georgia government. She also worked as one of 4 general managers reporting to the county manager in Mecklenburg County, North Carolina, and assistant city manager in Albany. She began her career in local government as a management intern in Prince George's County, Maryland. Throughout her career, she has always enjoyed bringing major projects to fruition, building trust in public government, and empowering staff to become their best and most productive. Her unique talents revolve around her willingness to address issues head-on with honesty, sincerity, and integrity, and in so doing, bring people closer to the organizations that serve them and employees closer to the organizations for which they work. A native of Augusta, Ms. Jackson graduated from the Academy of Richmond County, She was the first student at the College of William and Mary to pursue the interdisciplinary major in public policy, completing it with a concentration in urban policy. Later, she was a recipient of the Alfred P. Sloan Association for Public Policy Analysis and Management Fellowship and earned a master's degree in public policy with a concentration in management from Duke University. Ladies and gentlemen, put your hand claps, your rounds of applause in the chat. You can clap to yourself and give a warm welcome to our guest, City Manager Janice Allen Jackson. And tonight I will be facilitating the questions. Just as a few housekeeping rules ahead of time, I ask that you remain on mute unless you are asking your question. And for everyone who is asking a question, I will be keeping time, but we are asking just to ensure that everyone's questions get answered, or as many questions as possible tonight get answered, that you preserve just 1 minute. We're giving you 1 minute to ask your question. You can submit your question to me if you want to remain anonymous. I am Alex Bird, and I will ask the question for you. So with no further ado, Ms. Jackson, do you have anything to say before we get started, or do you want us to jump straight into questions?
You know, I actually have a presentation prepared for you based upon my conversation with Ms. Wells a couple of weeks ago. It's just a few slides, so we'll go through those slides, and that may respond to some of your questions.
Okay.
And then we'll be free to take questions. I will warn you that I'm still relatively new on the job, been here less than a year. So there are a lot of things that I do know, and there may be some things that you ask that I don't. But we're prepared to take notes and get back to you with any answers that I may not have off the top of my head. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Can I share screen?
You're on mute, Malika.
You should be able to share your screen, yes.
Okay. Let me see. Let's see if I can. Now let me find the document I want to share. Hold on just a second. It is. Let me see if I can pull it up. You know what? I did not download it. Well, let me see if I get it this way. There we go. There we are. You all see it now?
Not yet. What I see is an email that you were trying to open a PowerPoint attachment.
Okay. All right. Yeah, there's the invitation. It opened. Let me try something else. I'm going to try to download this and see if that. I'm going to see if this works. If this doesn't work, we'll have to, unfortunately, I won't be able to put it up, but I was hoping I could do that. Let's see.
And if it doesn't work, you can, if you think you can forward it to me, I'd be happy to open it on my end.
I might just have to do that. We will take that as the, just in case, because I don't want to fumble around and miss anybody's time here. So I'm going to try to email it to you right now, Ms. Wells. Should I use the, which email address should I use for you? Stonecrestcitizens.org?
Yes.
And I'm gonna, can you see this email now? What do you see on the screen?
I see the email.
Okay.
Malika, she may need to stop sharing and then reshare.
Yeah, I may need to do that. Let me see. that Ms. Wells was able to assist. I'm glad Ms. Wells was able to assist. Okay, as I was introduced, thank you so much, Ms. Bird. I have the pleasure of serving as your city manager. I was acting city manager from about April 8th of last year until January 24th of this year. And the council was gracious enough to approve my contract to continue as city manager for another 2 years through the end of December of 2023. So basically 22 and 23. We can, you will notice at the bottom of each slide, we have on one side community, culture, commerce and culture. On the other side, a world-class city. And that is because that's the goal that the Stonecrest Mayor and Council set for themselves at the time that the city was created. I think those came out of the first retreat that they had probably back in 2017, 2018. And we have continued to use that because we believe that those are good aspirational goals for Stonecrest. We go to the next slide. Just so everybody knows, these are your elected representatives. I know all of you are very engaged already, but I just wanted to point out their photographs in the event that you don't know them. In this way, if you see them at IHOP or Walmart or CVS, you will know who your representatives are. Those who are most recently elected are from our odd number districts, districts 1, 3, and 5. Those also happen to be the districts that are represented by women on the council. District 1, Ms. Tara Graves is brand new to us. She's still getting ready to serve and getting oriented to everything that we do at the city of Stonecrest. District 3 represented by Ms. Cobble, and District 5 represented by Ms. Grimes. And I believe both of them are in their second terms. The other two districts, 2 and 4, are represented by the Turners, George Turner, District 4, who's been our Mayor Pro Tem, and Rob Turner in District 2. So next slide. Can you pull up our next? Okay. Of course, with mayor, thank you. Our mayor's position is currently vacant. You all, I'm sure, are well aware of the circumstances behind that, so I won't have to describe that in any degree of detail. But I can let you know that according to the city charter, which we're going to go into as we get into the presentation, a slide or two from now, the charter does call for the removal of any elected official if they plead guilty to an office. So that is the reason for the vacancy in that position. The special election has been approved for May 24th, which will be right upon us in a little while. You may know if you watched not the most recent special call meeting, but the council meeting or work session, I believe before that, our city attorney described to us the 3 options that the council had for choosing an election date. They were March 15th, May 24th, or November 8th. Those dates are prescribed by the state of Georgia because just for organization's sake, the state prescribes what day elections can take place. So those were the 3 options that were presented to the council. I will let you know that there was a significant cost differential between having a special election in March and joining in on May 24th, because May 24th is the day that the primaries are going to take place for numerous offices. In short, if we had a special election in March, it would be ours, Stonecrest election alone. So we would have to bear all the costs associated with that. Because the election is shared with a bunch of other elections on May 24th, there's a split with the cost. For instance, I think the cost would have been for March would have been about $78,000 to have an election in March. The cost for us to do it in May is only about $4,500 because of that cost split. So it was financially more feasible to do it that way. And also it was more, I think we heard a number of comments from citizens. There were a number who submitted public comments last month saying, hey, you know, we would like to have more time. We encourage you to do this in May. So the council heard those concerns and decided on last night to go with the May 24th special election date. Also, in terms of what the city does in the absence of a mayor, we've been asked that question numerous times, of course, by the Atlanta Journal-Constitution and others. Because of the form of government that Stonecrest now has. Stonecrest has a council manager form of government. The mayor's role is largely ceremonial. So we'll see minimal or have seen minimal disruption to our operations based upon the absence of a mayor. Later on, as I indicated, I'll get into the charter and we can look specifically at the roles and responsibilities of the mayor so you know exactly what he or she does in terms of our operations. And our next slide. What is the city charter? I wanted to, it's because the city charter is literally the most important document that there is in terms of the governance of this city and any other city. It is the foundational document. If you would like to click on that link, we can actually, I believe we'll be able to actually go straight into the city's website and I'll show you where the charter is on the city's website. And as I indicated, the document is there. That means that at any time, at your leisure, you can go in and take a look at the charter and it will answer a number of questions that you have about the city's organization and operations. And it's not coming up, is that right? I see it in the chat. Somebody else, can you see it? I can't see it. So I'm wondering if that's not, if the link is not going to work the way we wanted it to. If not, I can kind of talk through some. There, no, let's see. Now that's the old one. Let's see.
The old one? This is the one that came up in the, when I clicked on the link.
It did? Yeah, that may be.
It says, let's go back.
Yeah, and it may be that we use the incorrect link. That may be, let's go under government, let's go into city documents.
This one?
Amended, original, updated city charter, the first one. Let's click on the first one that says updated city charter. Yeah, that's it.
Okay. This
is the most recent update. There was an initial charter that was passed at the time the city was created. And then last year, the council petitioned, or the majority of the council petitioned the state legislative delegation to create a new charter. There were several changes, the most significant of which is changes in the powers of the office of mayor. In the previous charter, it was essentially a strong mayor form of government, which is to say that the city manager and therefore all staff reporting to the city manager reported to the mayor. So you had a very strong executive branch of government under the first charter. Under this revised charter, we went to a council mayor form of government, and that is a very standard form of government. It's used by thousands of cities across the United States, including some of the biggest cities in the country, such as San Antonio, Texas, Phoenix, Arizona, Charlotte, North Carolina, et cetera, et cetera. Under this form of government, you hire a professional manager, someone like myself. The council hires that person to carry out the day-to-day functions of the government. The city manager reports directly to the mayor and council, and all staff report to the city manager. So essentially, the council makes policy. It is their job under this form of government to create policy. It's the city manager's job to carry out that policy. One example of that is the city's budget, and we'll talk about that in some detail later on in the presentation. But essentially, city manager and staff put together a budget. We review that budget with the mayor and council, and the mayor and council votes to approve or amend the budget as necessary so that we have a budget approved. But all of that starts with your professional staff under the council manager form of government. This charter is in fact 47 pages long. So it's a long single spaced. So it is a long document, but it is very significant from the standpoint that it prescribes everything, as I said, about the way that we do business. You can look at the roles and responsibilities of the mayor, of council people, of the city manager. You can see what positions it is that the council appoints. It provides for the creation of a community improvement district, which is a district by which businesses can decide to tax themselves to improve the area in which they're located. It talks about the various powers of a city government, and in fact, even extends some powers that we don't have right now. For instance, it addresses police services and fire services. We know currently those services are provided for by DeKalb County. But if at some point in the future, the city decides to take on those functions, this charter enables them to do that. I know one of the issues that you all are keenly interested in is elections. It prescribes the qualifications for elections and how you get into that. And it's an extremely dense and comprehensive document. While it may not be the most exciting reading, I encourage any citizen who is interested in really knowing how a city operates to review the charter of the city. And I'll also say that, one city's charter is different from the next city's charter and is different from the next city's charter. Each one has its own unique facets. So let's say if you were to move from Stonecrest to Savannah, they're going to have a totally different charter, perhaps. You'll find some similarities. You may find some things that are different. And usually the things that you find that are similar are because they're rooted in state law. It's something that state of Georgia law provides for. So I won't go into any further detail on the charter unless there are questions. There may be an opportunity for us to pull up some of the provisions of the charter that relate to your questions. Okay. All right, let's go in Senate Bill 21. Okay, we got forms of government. That was the bill that created the Georgia General Assembly has to approve the charter of any new city. I talked some about forms of government already. Mayor, council, strong mayor, which is essentially what we had. Commission government, where most of the power is vested in a legislative group like a commission, and then council manager is what Stonecrest has operated under since April of last year. Okay. The budget. Now let's try to click on this link. We have a $13.7 million budget that was created, approved by the council on November 10th of last year. And let's see. Yeah, it went straight to the budget. Great. This is the 2022 budget. And this just gives you an idea of the summary of funds. And the first part is the total revenues. You'll see over in the corner totaling $13.7 million FY22 adopted budget, which is slightly smaller than your FY21 budget. Actually, it was at 13.9 million. And we arrived at that based upon our revenue projections that we're expecting a little bit less to come in. And then the next part of that is your expenditures. It shows in general terms how the money is spent. The first is where it comes from. That next part is where it goes in terms of those departments and how it's spent. Okay. And then we get into further detail: hotel, motel dollars, SPLOS dollars. Those are used for capital projects, municipal court, et cetera, et cetera. It just goes on into further detail. Again, I bring this to you today just so you know that the documents are there on your website so that you can study those at your leisure. And I just want you to know what's there and give you a general idea of how the budget is laid out. So hopefully that aids in your understanding of how your tax dollars are spent. One of the unique things about Stonecrest is that because we are a limited service city, which is to say we don't provide the police, the fire, etc. We don't get a lot of property tax revenue. DeKalb County does provide, collects taxes and provides some money to the city for the services that we provide. But one of our, some of our sources of revenue, like a major source of revenue for us is building permits. Luckily we've had a good deal of expansion and growth in Stonecrest, and that in and of itself has translated into some revenues for our general fund. I've had staff take a look at some of the other cities in DeKalb to see what their percentage, like a city like Decatur, I think $19 million in property tax revenue, whereas our property tax revenue is 1.8 million. Even though you look at our population and we're a lot larger than a Decatur, because we've got almost 60,000 people in Stonecrest. And in case you didn't know, we are the largest city in DeKalb County. Woohoo! Because we're a limited service city, our budget's not as big as some of the others, and we're not using as much property tax dollars as some of the other cities would. But anyway, this just sort of breaks down to you all the taxes, the fees, franchise fees. You pay Georgia Power and Atlanta Gas Light, and then they pay us a fee back. That's a charge for services as they come in. They may dig up right away and that sort of thing, and they have to compensate us for that. But there's a set fee structure for those franchise fees. Okay, then alcohol license taxes, et cetera, et cetera. So this is really a general fund revenue detail. It shows all the different line items that comprise the revenue for the Stonecrest budget. Okay. I think we can go to the next slide. If we go back into the PowerPoint for the next slide, yes. I think we were probably around slide 6. Okay, it's budgets. The next one, we did that one. Budget priorities. Yes, let's go. Did we skip? Yeah, let's go. I think there's a slide before this. There we go. That's the slide I wanted to concentrate on. Okay. Oh, major sources of revenue. Thank you. This is just a summary of the major sources of revenue. I sort of talked through this when we were on the website. Real property, 1.8 million. Total business taxes, 4.1 million. General business license, 1.5. Building permits, I mentioned, make reference to that, 1.7, for a total budget of $13.7 million. So, the exercise in putting together a budget, we get a little money from here and money from there, and and then here you go with the budget. Okay, let's go to the next slide. I think we'll get into budget priorities. The budget priorities were set as a result of an exercise that we went through with our mayor and council. We sort of went through a list of things that they had identified in a budget retreat back in February, I believe it was, of 21. They talked about some capital projects planning specifically related to road resurfacing and things like that. But I also asked them to identify what some of the key items for them are. If there are things in the future that we could fund, what would those be? And this is the list that resulted from that. They talked about, and then after we went through an exercise with them where we gave each one of them a little homework, take this list, put them in rank order, and then we averaged up everybody's rankings to come back with this. Priority number 1 was enhanced code enforcement. Priority number 2, developing an economic development plan. Number 3, enhanced right-of-way maintenance and litter control. 4, further studies to guide decision-making on whether we should get into the policing business. And then priority 5, staff support for mayor and council. And then it went on down the list. I won't read each one individually. And Ms. Wells, since you do have the presentation, I have no problem at all with you sharing this to everybody, with everybody in the group. I think this information, I'm pretty sure it's on the website already, but if you want to have the condensed form of the presentation, this is just fine too. But on the first column, we've got the priority. Next column, we've got the ranking after we put all of the mayor and council members' rankings together and average those. And then the last is how we addressed their priorities in our recommended budget for this fiscal year. So, for instance, the code enforcement, in order to enhance our code enforcement, we recommended adding 1 code enforcement officer. In fact, our director of code enforcement will soon be interviewing candidates for that position. So that's the process there. Council identifies priorities. The finance director and myself put together a recommended budget. The council then approves that budget. Once the budget's approved, we advertise the position if the enhancement is a new position, for instance, as it is in this case. That department director works with HR, gets your position advertised, and we hopefully hire somebody, and hopefully in another month or so, we'll have an extra code enforcement officer on our streets. One of the goals that we have for this is right now we've got 1 code enforcement director and 4 officers. We wanted him to be able to have 5, so there could be 1 code enforcement officer assigned to each district. Right now, they kind of have to split their time, but see, organizationally, that's just the way we think about it. If we can get 1 code enforcement person in each district, he or she then can get familiar with the people, the problems, the issues, what have you in that particular district. And we think it will help develop better relationships and hope at the end of the day result in better code enforcement in each one of the districts in Stonecrest. Okay. If we could go on to the next slide. Budget priorities. These are some of the ones that didn't make the cut. I think the first sheet was the ones that made it. Okay, this particular sheet, the mayor listed some separate items that were not on the list. So that's what that sheet was. Yeah, those were, he talked about some special events, economic development funding, business development, Stonecrest Cares, Stonecrest Visitors and Convention Bureau. So those were items that he had listed. And some of the things were addressed anyway, like under economic development and special events. We had some money included in those, his priorities 1 and 3. Next page. Yeah, some of his were not on the other list, so we couldn't average those with the others. So that's why we presented those separately. City council meetings and responsibilities. When does the council meet? That charter, as I made reference to earlier, only requires the council to meet once per month. However, we typically meet twice per month. The 1 meeting per month is to take final votes on issues. That's when they can actually make decisions. And that's the 4th Monday of every month. On the 2nd Monday of every month, we have what's called a work session. And in that work session, it's time for them to gather information and discuss issues, but they don't actually vote in those meetings. We thought that this was a good setup because if items were on the regular meeting agenda that they hadn't had a chance to ask questions about or really discuss, A, it was making the meetings really, really long, and B, they just didn't have adequate time for discussion so that they could make sure what they understood what it was that they were being asked to make decisions upon. So this is pretty common format. Some councils meet every week. They'll have 2 work sessions at a regular meeting. But this one, so far, it seems like it's working. 1 work session, 1 council meeting seems to be working pretty well. But as I said, the charter only requires them to have 1 meeting a month. How are topics selected for discussion and decision? The new charter provides that the mayor pro tem puts together the agenda. In practical terms, so what that means is that many times, of course, we as staff have items that need to be addressed. I'll give an example. Let's say we're purchasing some new equipment. Any purchases over $25,000, require the approval of the mayor and council. So if we need to purchase X, that's something we'll place on the agenda. I'll give an example. We had never had to do a human resources information system because all of our employees were furnished by our contract with Jacobs. So now that we've gone to in-house services, and I haven't talked about that, but I think everybody probably knows, Jacobs have been providing services to the city of Stonecrest throughout its existence up until January 1 of this year. So that meant that we were converting to an in-house workforce. Which meant that we had to have our own staff, which meant we had to have our own HR. We'd never had any need for that before. So we've had to purchase a human resources information management system. And that cost exceeded the $25,000 threshold that I could approve as city manager. So we have to place that on the agenda for the council's approval. So you've got items that we have to add, we as staff have to add in order to do the business of the city. You have items that the council themselves, they want to consider. There may be items that have come to their attention by way of the public. So we go through a process to put together an agenda. We ask our department directors to get an agenda to the clerk's office. Clerk's office in turn gets those items to me. I review it with the city attorney, and then I also review it with the mayor pro tem, so that he understands everything that's on the agenda. And if he has items that he wants to add or he's been asked to add, I add those items as well. So we go through a process, about a week-long process, basically, to get the agenda together for each meeting, so that we can address those items that we need to take care of the city's business and or enhance services. So that's how items get there. Council members can also, I think it requires 3 of them, but they can 2 or 3, and that is in the charter. I have to remember what it is. They can decide to add items to the agenda as well. So that's how they get there. And the last question I wanted to address here was, how can a concern that the public has be added to the agenda? One, if it's just a matter of public comment, you can submit a public comment to the clerk's office, or you can submit a request to your council person, and then he or she will be responsible for forwarding that to the mayor pro tem, so that it makes the final agenda. Okay. Oh, and that was all I have. So I'm ready for questions. As I said, I didn't have a lot of slides. Hopefully that gives you some overview of what the city is about. And at this point, again, thank you so much, Ms. Wells, for doing that PowerPoint for me. And at this point, I'd be more than happy to take questions. And I said, if there's something that I can't respond to right now, we'll take note of it, and we will get a response back to you via email.
Perfect. Thank you so much for that wonderful presentation. It was so informative. I can't wait to go back through it again. Probably a few times, go back through it a few times. I had a professor once tell me, if you can't repeat it in one line, in one sentence, then you don't know what you're talking about. So I'm going to go through it until I can answer the question in one sentence. So I know what I'm talking about. I know what the city of Stonecrest is all about. I do have a question from a District 5 resident who wanted to know, what is the priority for building out the new Farrington Park property as a botanical garden?
That is something that has been discussed with me. I've actually walked the property. And it really can be a beautiful area, but to be honest, I think we're a ways away from making it happen. One of the things that we've discussed is really having some study to figure out, what would it really cost to develop as a botanical garden, what features we want to include, and what the goals of such an endeavor would be. So it did not, if we went back to that priority list, I was trying to see if I had a hard copy in front of me. It looks like I don't, but I can't, I know it didn't make the top 5 on that priority list, it might have fallen somewhere in the mid-range, which is to say, I think eventually we will get to doing a complete study on that to see what the cost would be. And then the council can make some decisions from there as to what funding sources we would use to develop that into a botanical garden. And, maybe we may have a big idea now, may have to do something smaller and then develop it in phases. But right now, to direct answer to your question, it was not within the top 5, but it is something that's on our radar screen. But we've got a lot of study to do to see what it really takes to develop a viable botanical garden at that location.
Thank you so much for that information, Ms. Jackson. And our next question is coming from Ms. Kathy Glass. She is a District 1 resident. Ms. Glass, if you could unmute yourself.
Hi, good evening.
Good evening.
Hi, Ms. Jackson. Thank you for taking my question. A few months ago, well, a couple of months ago, I sent you an email because I just didn't know where to turn. I live in Laurel Post subdivision, and directly across from me is my neighbor, Mrs. Scott, and behind their houses, they're building this truck parking lot, this huge truck parking lot, and they've been building on it for months, probably a little bit over a year. They stopped building at one time and they resumed, and it's constant alarms, explosions. I'm talking about earth-shattering explosions where I'm concerned about some of the houses' foundation, including mine. It's noisy, it smells, and it's so close to the homes. And we, of course, again, we missed the ball just like we did on Metro Green. So I wanted help in finding out who do I turn to as far as the noise level, the particulate matter, and the explosions. It's because it seems dangerous to be exploding so close to our homes. So I sent you a detailed email and I never got a response. I said, if this is not your area of expertise, could you please lead me in the direction that I need to go? But I never heard anything.
Yeah.
Also, I've been living here for 30 years. And when I moved, before I even closed on my house, I was fighting a medical waste incinerator. Went down, spoke, and we won. And I noticed that there were some groups there that were quiet, and they were from other Roswell, those places, because they said they know what's coming and they come and sit in on our meetings to see what happens at our neighborhoods so they can prepare for the fight. So we definitely have to be proactive rather than reactive. But it's like I've been here for 30 years. I'm tired of fighting. And I have to say I gave up some years, but I'm back. And I need to know, where do I go? Who do I talk to? I heard, what's his name? The one who just voted out. I'm sorry.
Sorry to interrupt you. I want to give Ms. Jackson a chance to answer your first couple questions. And then once we get those answered, if we don't have any more, then I'll definitely get back to you with your next question.
Okay.
Okay. Ms. Glass, Ms. Glass, number one, I'm very sorry if we did not respond to the email. I do have staff that's usually checking those and gets back to those citizen complaints for me. So I apologize, number one. Number two, one of the things that I have recently become aware of is, Stonecrest is not called Stonecrest for, there is a reason that it's called Stonecrest, which means that there's a lot of stone underneath the ground, and any development requires blasting. And that sounds like what's happening in your area. One of the things that has been suggested, and number one, the blasting permits are issued by the DeKalb County. I think it's the DeKalb Fire that handles those as compared to the city of Stonecrest, but we still get involved because they're our residents. One of our staff members suggested to me recently that we have a blasting ordinance that will place some restrictions on those types of activities, so you're not hearing explosions in the middle of the night and those sorts of things. So I will, number one, again, I'll check for your email, and I'm sorry again it didn't get responded to. We'll go back through. What's your email address, ma'am, so we can do a search for it?
Mrs. clglass@gmail.com.
MRSCL
Yes, clglass@gmail.com.
Okay, and what district do you live in?
District 1.
District
in Laurel
1.
Post, I'm in Laurel Post subdivision.
Okay, District 1
And
and Laurel Post subdivision. What's the main roads near there?
Phillips Road, and I sit down the hill, and this parking lot is on the back end, but behind us. I don't know the street. I'm going to go back by there. I tried to go back by there to take a picture of the address because I need to send them a certified letter because they had people over there shooting, and they shot through my car. If my granddaughter had been sitting in the front seat, she would be dead. I thank God every day that the bullet, it ripped through my car, caused thousands of dollars worth of damage, but we're alive. So cars can be replaced. We can't. So it's a dangerous site. I mean, they stopped working over there for a while, and people were over there target shooting, and it just happened to come straight through and rip through the roof of my car, shattered my windshields, and the bullet landed in my dashboard.
Okay. All right. That's awful. Okay, I'm glad everybody is well, and we'll go back
Yeah,
and check
that's
for that
important.
email to see what else we can do. But yeah, blasting is something, unfortunately, with development, because we are on a stone foundation. Apparently, a lot of folks do that. A lot of developments require that. And I think our council is interested in putting some additional regulations in place. But
Yeah,
I can
especially
check
so close to
once.
houses. It's so close to these homes.
Okay. All right.
Thank you so much, Ms. Glass, for your questions. And so sorry to hear about what's happening to you. We do have another question, Ms. Jackson, coming in from, and forgive me if I butcher your last name, Ms. Diane Adoma. When will they post the qualifying dates, or where can we find them on the website?
They are not on the website today because the council just decided on yesterday when they would hold the election. But the qualifying dates are statewide qualifying dates. I believe it's March 7th through the 11th. That is the week that has been set aside under state law for qualifying. And I'm pulling up my calendar just to make sure I got that right. Yes, March 7th through 11th are going to be the qualifying dates. And that's prescribed in state law.
Thank you so much for that information. Also, we have another question. In the past year, what have you done to measure code enforcement's effectiveness?
Okay. All right. Code enforcement. We can keep basic statistics on we can keep statistics on, how many cases they cited, how many cases they take to court. Code enforcement is one of those tough things, not just in our community, but in any number of communities where I've worked. And this is the issue. One, you cite somebody, I'm just going to use this as an example because I don't know anything about the particular case that you're talking about here, case or cases that you're talking about here. But, many times a code enforcement officer will go out and if it is a tenant occupying the property as opposed to an owner occupied unit, it's a tenant occupying the property. Sometimes tenants are afraid to even report what's going on because they're afraid they're going to be kicked out. B, if they do report it, then the landlord may kick them out, or the tenant may feel like he or she wants to leave. But the question then becomes, where do they go? You can take the landlord to court. I have seen many a landlord get into court and say, I'm elderly, I'm on a fixed income, I inherited this property, I really don't have money to fix it up. And then the judge tries to show some measure of compassion on the landlord by, giving them additional time to get problems fixed. Code enforcement, which is all to say there are a lot of problems with code enforcement, not the least of which you don't want to try to make somebody homeless in the process. So what I've seen the most successful approaches in other communities is some wraparound services. And when I say wraparound services, if there are resources available through community development, block grant dollars and that sort of thing, a lot of times it is better to try to connect the landlords with those funding sources so that they can get roofs repaired and, just use that as an example, than it is to try to kick somebody out. Because in you say, well, you're closing this property down, you can't use it anymore. Then where does the family go? So it really gets to be a huge dilemma in terms of how you deal with property owners that are not investing what they should into getting properties cleaned up. That said, want to make the point that there's no easy answers. That said, our code enforcement issues a fair number of citations, and you wind up with court days where our municipal court judges are hearing a lot of code enforcement cases and trying to balance, being reasonable and compassionate with the need to get those properties repaired. But yeah, in terms of measurement, you look at statistics. How long does it take to get a case closed? How many citations have they written? Is it the same folks over and over and over again? And then you got a different problem. So those are maybe some of the hard points as well as the fine points associated with getting quality code enforcement done.
Thank you so much for that information, Ms. Jackson. Our next question comes in from Mr. Thad Mayfield, and he wants to know, as a new city and using the pattern of low voter turnout as a measure of citizen participation, what initiatives, if any, does the city have to increase citizen engagement?
One of the priorities on that budget list that I showed earlier, it apparently was below 5, but it was above 12, because 12 is where they kind of got cut off with funding, was to bring aboard somebody on staff whose job is public engagement. I would like to, I recommended to the council and they approved that we place that position in our communications department, because, communications is really what we, what we really want to emphasize. It has been made clear to us by Ms. Wells and others that our public is looking for not just one-way communication, but two-way communication. So we are now in the process of hiring a communications director, because our previous director was hired through Jacob. So we're in the process of bringing on board a full-time communications director and a public engagement coordinator or specialist. I can't remember exactly what we call the position, where it would be their responsibility to create means of engagement. I'd love for us to do some community surveys where we learn more about how you feel about the city and learn more about your expectations in terms of what we can do in order to ensure that you feel like you're being heard. Now that gets to engagement. I guess the other part, you talking about low voter turnout. Unfortunately, that is a nationwide problem. We have had in other communities where we've had special elections where the voter turnout was as low as 4 and 5%. So yeah, we can take information to the city out to our residents, but people are going to have to really take responsibility for saying, hey, I really want to have some input and getting out there and exercising their right to vote, because too often it just does not happen.
Thank you so much for that information. And we have another question coming in from Ms. Serena Beckton, who asks, what is being done about the crime in Stonecrest?
That is one where that really has been left with the DeKalb County Police Department. We do have regular meetings with DeKalb, and I will say DeKalb Police has worked well with us. There is a specific person from DeKalb Police that is assigned to address our concerns, so that if we have questions, complaints, etc., we go to that specific person who works with us to resolve those. We have a meeting at least a couple times a week where some of our elected officials attend, our staff members are part of that discussion, so that we can identify to them what trends are, and they can identify back to us what actions that they have taken to address those trends. For instance, I remember a couple of issues that really came to my attention over the past few months. One related to our parks and the drag racers, for lack of a better term, that just want to come in and take over a park. Luckily, we were able to have enough intelligence in advance that we were able to head off one of those activities at Brownsville. Another example, we were hearing about all these break-ins at Arabian Mountain and other places where a number of cars congregate. So we try to communicate on a regular basis with the DeKalb police to make sure they know what the concerns are, and we know what the trends have been. It will be interesting for us to see if we want to get into the business of policing ourselves. That's a discussion that I know we'll be having over the subsequent months, and I know that you as a community need to be involved with.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that information. We have one more question that's circling back to the code enforcement. It's a hot topic tonight. And the issue faced was that code enforcement from this person, they say they seem to hate to issue citations and seem to rarely get results, and people are ignoring them. And so he said that cases around his area drag on, they get closed, and then they're reported again. So is there anything that can be done to make them more effective in getting results for the residents?
You know, I don't want to say too much. Let me speak more from my experience over my career as opposed to just Stonecrest, because I can't speak from Stonecrest standpoint because I just haven't had enough conversations with our municipal court judges and the like. But many times code enforcement cannot have teeth unless the municipal court is cooperating with them. And again, I want to repeat, because I haven't had this conversation with the judges. So I can't say what their philosophy has been on handling these cases, but in other environments, I've seen where judges have been maybe more lenient than we would like them to be with landlords. But by the same token, the question still is what I got back to earlier, what I said earlier about sometimes you can be real hard, you can swing the hammer, and then you wind up with a bunch of homeless families that don't have anywhere to go because you closed down their place. So it's a delicate balance.
Thank you so much for that information. Our next question comes in from Miss Renee Kyle. I'm sorry if I mispronounced your last name, who asked, can you please tell us how you feel about a proposed 1.9 million square foot warehouse project for the city of Stonecrest?
What I can tell you is that we're getting as much information as possible about this. We discussed it in some detail in our work session on last night. Our planning director presented the process, which there's a DRI process, a review process that is led through the Atlanta Regional Commission. The particular project that you're talking about at the IDI warehouse complex, they have applied for review through the Atlanta Regional Commission. They'll look at impacts to surrounding neighborhoods. They'll look at noise, transportation, and other factors, and they will bring that data back to us. And at that point, when we have that data, we can arrive at some better conclusions about whether or not we feel that project is good or bad for our community. Of course, our council also, I think part of the presentation last night also emphasized the zoning code and how it requires certain barriers. Like earlier, Ms. Glass was talking about how close a particular project was to a neighborhood. That's one of the things that will be considered. How do we create, is it vegetation buffers or any other means to make sure that those things are not directly in your face if you live near them. So we go through that review process. Once we have that data, and I encourage all of you to follow that process. Once we have that data, if there's nothing prohibiting us, we would like to post that report on the website as well, so you all could read the whole thing to see what the professionals believe the impact of such a development would be on our community.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. And our next question comes in from our very own president, Ms. Malika Wells, who asks, in the last special called meeting, public comments were on the agenda after roll call. However, that item was skipped and at least 2 public comments submitted for the special called meeting were not read into the minutes of that meeting. She wants to know, why did that happen? And what remedies are there for citizens whose comments were not read as they expected?
Yeah, I did notice that, and I'll be honest, I don't know what happened. I don't know if it was just an oversight that it was not called out. Um, I don't know. I will try to find out what happened and what remedy we can put in place. I don't know, but we'll have to get back to you on that one.
Okay, thank you so much. And our next question comes in from Miss Angela Russell. Does the office of mayor have any vote as to the approval of businesses that want to come to the city, or is the final decision up to the city council?
The mayor does not have, only has a vote in the event of a tie. So, and let's talk about when there is a need for them to even vote. The primary reason a council would vote on a business coming in is if that business requires rezoning. If it requires rezoning, of course, that business has to submit a rezoning application through our planning department. Our planning department their staff does research. They present a report to our planning commission. The planning commission votes whether, to recommend yay or nay. And then their recommendation is provided to the city council. And under the changes with the charter, the old charter, mayor did have a vote. New charter, mayor does not. Mayor only votes in the event of a tie. And think about it, our council has 5 members. So if everybody's present, there's never going to be a tie. So let's say if one of the council members is absent and you wind up with a 2-2 tie, then the mayor would cast a vote. But so there are 2 conditions, again, to summarize for you to be aware of. One, will that business even require a vote? It would if there's a rezoning issue, or if they have filed for some special consideration, let's say a tax incentive or something like that, that would require a vote. If they wanted an incentive from the council, or if they needed a rezoning, or if there was some variance or some special conditions placed on the property, that would require consideration from the council.
Okay, thank you so much for that information. And it looks like I have actually asked all of the questions that were in the chat tonight. If I didn't, please call me out, send me a direct message. However, I do have a question. I want to pull the camera kind of all the way back. And I would love if you could answer this question, Ms. Jackson, as someone who has not only held so many prestigious roles and positions in local government, but as a resident. As a resident who is new to Stonecrest, or maybe even just wants to be more engaged in local politics in general, where would you recommend that as a resident, citizens begin the path of engagement? Because I've watched some of those city council meetings. I haven't necessarily seen the full 6 hours. I've gotten to about 4.5. I'm still getting through. I'm still pushing my way through. But some of the information sometimes can be over your head, or you have to go back and do a lot of research. And so you kind of get lost in the process. So I'm wondering, where would you recommend, if you were talking to a neighbor, talk to us as your neighbor, where would you recommend that we start to even understanding the processes so that we can keep up with the city council meetings?
That's an excellent question. And it has been a struggle, because you're right, the meetings are so long. It's like, who in the heck has that much time to listen to a meeting? I will say that the meetings are not always 4 and 6 hours. Like last night, for instance, we got out of there in about 2.5. So the meetings aren't always that long. But I will say this, utilize our website, because there's just a wealth of information there. Subscribe to all of our social media channels. We got Twitter as well as Facebook, as well as Nextdoor. I would at least check the agendas before the meetings. And like I said, it's 2 meetings a month plus whatever special call that we might do. Check the agendas to see first if there's something on the agenda that you think you're going to be interested in. And if you are, go ahead and tune in. If it gets to be too long, you can always go to our YouTube channel. There's the Stonecrest YouTube, and there's video there of the meeting. So that way you can scroll through quickly. You can put it on triple time and scroll through, quickly until they get to the particular item that is of interest to you. Newspapers are not perfect, but they do help. I will say that the reporter that covers us is Zach Hansen. He covers several of the municipalities in DeKalb, and he does a pretty good job. Most of the time his coverage is pretty accurate. So reading the newspaper, checking to see what agenda items are being incorporated or discussed on that particular evening, checking our social media, and participation with groups like this is a great way to do it. If there are particular agenda items, let's say if there's something that you all really want to discuss in detail related to code enforcement or any other topic, please don't hesitate to let us know that, and I will volunteer our department director to come out and talk in detail about that particular topic so that can help you get a better understanding. And one of the other things on the zoning front, we start doing zoning summits when we're considering substantial changes to the zoning code. And those zoning summits are usually an hour to 2 hours. And we really have some detailed discussions on those evenings about what that particular proposed change to the zoning code of ordinances is going to be. And there are a couple other things that are happening this month. Our council is doing some town hall type meetings. We did one on economic development last week. We've got one coming up on public works issues on the 23rd. We'll have another one on public safety later on. And I think we're also going to talk about have the 3 women who are on council. They're planning to do something during Women's History Month in March. So there are going to be some more abbreviated opportunities where no, you don't have to sit through a 4-hour meeting, but you can get information on a particular topic. And those things will be posted on our social media, so you'll know when they're happening and you can join in on Zoom as you are tonight.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. And we have another question coming in from Mr. Andrew Wells, who asked, this is a 2-part question. Do you benchmark your budget to comparable cities, and how long does it take to amend a budget?
Budget amendment is not difficult. I'll take that question first. It's not too difficult. What we normally try to do, and I want to let me preface all of this by saying, Stonecrest hadn't quite hit normal yet. And I just kind of want you to understand that, because we've only been in operation for such a short time. First under a contractor, which is a very unusual arrangement. To be honest, there are only a few cities, most of the new cities that have cropped up in the metro Atlanta area over the last 18 years or so have been operated by a firm in the beginning. But, and other cities may contract with a firm for some relatively small aspect of their operations, but this whole business of having a firm do all of your operations is very unusual. And now, of course, we're leaving that operation and we're going into a full-time government provided service arrangement. But we're now a grand total of 6 weeks into that. So Stonecrest really hadn't hit normal yet. I just want to make sure that you're there. We haven't hit normal, and we haven't hit stable quite yet. But when we get there, I think we'll be in a position where we really can benchmark where we are against the other cities. But it's going to take us a while to normalize before I feel like we can do that effective.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. And this is another question that seems to be pertaining to maybe some budget items as far as the form of taxes that might be near and dear and close to my heart, as I'm way past my dinner time. But as Stonecrest grows, are there any plans to bring more fine dining? And I would just like to interject and say, please, yes, please, especially when I saw that the taxes from property owners are right at the top.
Yeah,
Please don't do us wrong.
That would be great. And this is more of Janice's personal opinion than it is the city manager's opinion. But what Stonecrest has, and I'm learning the lay of the land because it's the first time I've been, spent this much time in DeKalb County. But what the lay of the land seems to be is that we've got a bunch of chain type restaurants. They're either the big chains or the little mom and pops. It's like nothing in between in Stonecrest, sort of. And then you've got everything that's developing in Rockdale County. And we are so close to Conyers that it appears that some people who live in Stonecrest drive over to Conyers to eat out and do whatever they want to do. And then you have to go to like a Decatur to get to the more, for lack of a better term, upscale type of food offerings. So we've got to find our sweet spot with that. As we have worked with Discover DeKalb, they are our destination marketing organization, which is to say they promote Stonecrest, and they were part of the Economic Development Forum. I hope that is on YouTube. If that meeting was only about an hour and a half, that would be a great meeting for you all to listen to if you really want to get some information about what's going on. But, they're promoting Arabian Mountain, of course. They're promoting the opportunity for tourism in our area, and they've done a good job making sure that our hotel space is filled. But as we do more planning on the economic development side, which we will soon, since that was a top priority, I think number 2 priority of our council, as we do more of that planning, those are the types of things that we want to hear from you. It's like, we really like someplace to eat that's not, something that you find in 20,000 other cities. So that's the type of feedback that we would want to have. Sometimes businesses don't feel that they locate in a particular place because they don't think that their core audience or their core group of customers would be there. So if Stonecrest feels like they want something different, quote unquote, better, we're going to have to make that known and then be able to support those types of restaurants when they come along.
Thank you so much for that information. And our next question coming in is from Mr. Wells, and he asks, how can citizens provide input on the budget prior to retreats, work sessions, or hearings? And are there plans to support our schools?
The school one is admittedly a tricky one. And I say it's tricky because, DeKalb County collects money for the school system to operate. So it is pretty unusual in the state of Georgia, which is different from North Carolina, because when I worked there, the county actually controlled the school system's budget. That's different in the state of Georgia. Since the school systems have their own taxing authority here, it is extremely rare for cities to contribute to a school system budget. In terms of the public participation piece on the budget, that's one of the things that I would like for our communications department, once they get fully staffed, to get a hold on. I want to do some community surveys and find out what you all are really interested in. And if budget is the thing, we may be able to work that into we should be able to work it into our public input plan and our budget planning process to get a feel for what's important to you all.
Thank you so much. And our next question is, will economic development be announcing regular tours for residents?
I will say, I'm not sure that that's something that we have thought of. Is there a little feedback on what those tours will look like? And what would you all want to see?
And I'm going to allow Mr. Wells to unmute himself and answer that question, because I don't want to speak.
Hello.
Hi.
Hey, so one, I would love to see a tour of our commercial areas, and kind of like the tours of the planned sites, proposed sites, things related to any industrial or anything like that we have up and available for lease. It'd be interesting to do that. And then another type of tour that I think would be valuable would one that gives folks a lay of the land for Stonecrest. For instance, District 2 goes out almost towards Marvitt Road, and the zip code is 30058. I'm interested, I'd be curious to know how many folks actually know that that is Stonecrest. You know, not Marvitt Road, but just before Marvitt Road. So it'd be interesting to you know, have folks get kind of a lay of the land, a perspective on geographically where we are. So the first one would be about our commercial sites, along with any, you know, plans and tidbits of information as you tour. And then the second one would be, you know, where folks can just kind of get a lay of the land and talk about major attractions, things upcoming for the city, stuff that's informational in nature.
Okay, that sounds like a great idea. You know, in terms of Stonecrest boundaries, you are absolutely right. One of the things that I was told very early on in my tenure with Stonecrest is that a significant number of our residents don't even know they're in the boundaries of Stonecrest. And the boundaries are not intuitive. I mean, our staff sometimes struggles with figuring out, you know, one side of the street will be Stonecrest, the other side of the street will be unincorporated DeKalb. So it is not an easy thing to learn what those boundaries are, but those boundaries are identified on our website. And I think there is a way you can go in and type in your address and figure out if you're in Stonecrest or if that address is not in Stonecrest. In terms of the tours, you know, what I'm thinking about, and y'all, this is not something that I think I can pull off right now, and maybe down the road, maybe a next year thing, but I would love to be able to have like a Stonecrest Academy where we could, you know, have a group of citizens, let's say, you know, each class is 15 or 20 or what have you, and you learn about different aspects of the city as part of that Stonecrest Academy. Like I say, it's just an idea that, you know, I've been twirling around for a minute, but I know it's going to be a while. We're going to have to be fully staffed and ready to carry that one out, but I'd love to do something like that.
That sounds amazing. Sign me up.
Mhm.
The next question coming in from Ms. Glass is there a way that all citizens of Stonecrest can receive an email letting us know what permits are being applied for?
I want to look at the capacity of our Citizen Serve platform. I think some of it is on there, but I'll need to dig into that one and give you a definitive answer. So put that one down for me to email you back with.
Okay, will do. And Ms. Glass, if you didn't already send your email address, you can either send it to myself or Ms. Jackson and make sure we get that. And the last question of the night is, oh, hold on, let me get down to it. It moved. Okay, there we go. Can you explain the approved resolution for the upcoming special election? And that comes in from Ms. Angela Russell.
And when you say explain, let me make sure. It says that there's going to be an election on May 24th. That the election will be run by DeKalb County. We have a cooperative agreement between DeKalb County and Stonecrest that spells out what part of the elections process we carry out and what part they carry out. Basically, candidates do the qualifying through us and pay the qualifying fees to us. And the DeKalb County actually runs the elections, and then they bill us for the costs associated with that. Does that answer your question, or do I need to get into some additional detail?
And Ms. Russell, you can unmute yourself if there's something different you were asking.
Yes, thank you. I was just concerned, maybe it's just me, but I read that it says special election to be held on 5/24 to set qualifying dates and fees. Is that not the true election, or that's what's confusing me?
Yes, I think that resolution, it just says that those are the steps that have to be taken. Basically, you got to set qualifying fees. And the fees are, just so everybody knows, it's 3% of the salary of the office, of the annual salary of the office. The annual salary for the mayor's role is $20,000. So it should be 3% of that. So that's just, you said them. So DeKalb and Stonecrest are clear on what the fees are. This lets them know that it's going to be on May 24th. And additionally, after this, we'll have to decide if we're going to have early voting in Stonecrest, which is at a different additional charge for us. We did it during the municipal election last year. The council, I think, will probably do it again this year. Does that help?
Maybe it's just me.
Okay.
Maybe it's just me. Maybe it's just me. So this is
Okay.
not the real election itself. It is, right?
Yeah.
Maybe what's confusing me is when it says special election to be held on 5/24 to set qualifying dates and fees.
I think there's probably supposed to be a comma. I'd have to go back and look at it. That resolution sets the election, comma, sets qualifying fees. And what was the third thing?
Qualifying dates and fees.
Okay. Yeah. Take a comma between each one of those things, because the resolution is to do all three of those things. Set a day of May 24th, set the qualifying fees, and set the dates for qualifying.
Okay. Thank you.
Hopefully that clarifies.
Thank you so
Thank
much
you.
for the question, Ms. Russell. And hopefully, that should clarify it for all of us. Commas are important. Commas, those ands, and those ors. All right. So that sums up all of our questions for the question and answer portion, Ms. Jackson. I also want to let you know that I did send you a direct message with Ms. Glass's email as far as her question pertaining to the permits. And also, if you could, Ms. Jackson, if you have them, if you could just drop the link for the handles for the Twitter and for the social media pages that you referenced earlier. If not, then I can locate those and drop those in the chat later on. And I am now going to turn the floor back over to our president, Ms. Malika Wells, for closing comments. But thank you so much, Ms. Jackson, for taking the time out and for all of the information that you provided to us.
Okay. We'll get those to you, because I don't want to, I'll miss one letter on them. We'll get them to you.
Okay.
The social media handles, we'll get them to you.
Awesome. Alex, thank you so much for your awesome facilitation of our engagement with City Manager Janice Allen Jackson. And thank you everybody for your questions on this evening. It was some really good engagement. Ms. Jackson, one of the things that I have really
didn't understand that.
Excuse me, my phone's talking.
Gary did not understand me.
Go right ahead. I'm sorry.
No, thank you. One of the things that I really appreciated about you being our city manager is your emphasis on a civic engagement. I love the platform and the space that you hold for your Local Matters podcast, which I really do engage, and also love that during our conversation, you really seem to understand that community engagement is critically important to a well-functioning city and a thriving city. And I definitely appreciated that. So wanted to thank everyone again for joining us on tonight, especially those who are joining us for the first time. Hope that you all will consider, especially if you are residents of Stonecrest, consider joining the Stonecrest Citizens Coalition. We are all about people power in place, and specifically people powered change. It takes community engagement, it takes community input, it takes community vigilance, and for us to tune in to make this an incredible city. We know that we have the opportunity before us to see Stonecrest be great and live up to all its expectations. We have a special election coming up to elect a new mayor, and we hope that you all will consider joining us for our March 8th meeting at 7 p.m. Information about that will be on our Facebook page, on our Instagram page. And also we'll probably be posting to Nextdoor as well. So if you haven't dialed in before, please continue to dial in and invite your neighbors to do the same. So we need to stay tuned in to what's happening in our city so that we can participate in making it great. So I love that we're ending on time. It's 8:31, and we try to make sure that these meetings are less than 2 hours if at all possible. If you had questions that didn't get answered, Ms. Jackson has kindly provided her email address in the chat. Please copy it and send your questions directly to her. She also shared with everyone that the City Council meets on the 4th Mondays and the 2nd Mondays. We hope that you all continue to stay engaged with those meetings as well. Those are broadcast on the city's YouTube page. So you can search Stonecrest City or City of Stonecrest and find them on YouTube every 4th Monday and 2nd Monday. Stonecrest Citizens Coalition meetings are every 2nd Tuesday. So we hope that you'll continue to engage with us as well. With that said, everyone have such a great night. Be safe, and we hope to see you next month.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.